let's look at that medical examiner's report a little more closely. Here it is. Nothing about that reason, as Sarah has told us, for the scar on the hip. The only cause of death, fentanyl toxicity. Again, that toxicity is an important word. Not applicable is entered into the additional spaces as cause of death. Other significant conditions, also not applicable. Nothing about other drugs possibly in the system. Again, we don't get a complete toxicology. All we get is that there's toxic levels of fentanyl. Dr. Moroney, help us sort of navigate through this. What else didn't they say, and what do we make of that?
All right. There was some rumors that, number one, he had some kind of pneumonia. Number two, he may have had some infectious disease. Because these are not listed, those don't matter. You know, if he had HIV or hepatitis C, none of that's contributing, and it's not there. It's not important because it's not there.
Now, let me stop you. Does that mean he did not have those things? Because they would have been contributing if he just had them even as chronic conditions.
No, and it's because they were not evident as chronic conditions.
Right, not there.
It would be important for a health department to record somebody who had a pneumonia with hepatitis C or HIV, and it's not there.
Right.
The other thing that's really important is when it talks about fentanyl toxicity, it doesn't tell you whether the fentanyl was pharmaceutical grade and a fentanyl product or whether it was street fentanyl. And what we would know is that if he died, if he shot fentanyl, the difference between fentanyl and heroin is with heroin, you could die 30, 40 minutes, an hour and a half later, the overdose. With fentanyl, you die in 3 minutes. And so if he got an injection, he would be full of parent compound and no metabolites. And that's going to be in the official report that's not released.
Oh, I see. So we're never going to hear that. Lisa, let me ask you this. Will those data, all that information that we were just hearing about, be given to law enforcement? And if so, could there be charges?
Well, charges against whom? Whoever gave him these medications? You know, this strikes me as preferential treatment for a celebrity protecting his privacy, which, frankly, I think everyone's privacy should be protected, or no one's, but we shouldn't have preferential treatment. There's more questions really raised than answered by this report, as far as I see it.
Sarah, is this preferential treatment, or is this just how it works in Minnesota? This is a lockdown medical record, even if there's a criminal investigation.
Yeah, this is really how everyone is treated. And I did go back and try to look to see some other reports coming out of that medical examiner's office, and they treat everyone the same. Cause and manner of death, and that's just about it. I mean, you see scars and amputations, that's listed there, so they have to put that down. But for the most part, you know, regular folks, this is all you're going to get for them as well. And again, in Minnesota, the law is very, very strict as to what they can release and what they cannot release. And I think in this case in particular, because the whole world is watching, they're being extremely careful. But I don't think it's any different than what they would release for someone like you or I.
But Dr. Moroney, if there were some sort of criminal investigation, wouldn't they at least allow law enforcement to look at some of the data, or the specifically relevant data?
The sheriff and the chief medical examiner have a relationship that in court they'll share anything, and there doesn't need to be a subpoena, and that's how those investigations are done. But outside of a criminal investigation, that information is usually not passed on to the sheriff unless it's important. And if he took some kind of knockoff Chinese illegal fentanyl, his body would also have some of the chemicals used to synthesize fentanyl. If he took a synthetic grade fentanyl from a product but misused the product, that chemistry is going to be missing.